You're watching the Daily Climate Show on Sky News. On today's programme, how dozens of factories in southwest Detroit are poisoning the air in what locals call Michigan's most polluted zip code. Relentless climate change as global temperatures tick up. UN experts warn 2020 was one of the 3 warmest years on record. And wake up and smell the climate-resilient coffee. Hello and welcome to the UK's only daily climate news show where we track the changes happening to our world right now and meet those coming up with the solutions. And we aim to take you to the heart of the climate crisis, explain the data driving the changes that are already affecting us, but also show you just how far we've come. We start today with what residents are calling Michigan's most toxic zip code. It's in a corner of southwest Detroit where locals have spent years fighting the quality of the air that they're breathing in. In and around the 48217 district, there are more than 20 pollutant-producing facilities owned by multiple companies, and they include an oil refinery, a steel mill and a coal-fired power plant. Residents say the pollutants in the air have had major impacts on their health and that of their children. Our US correspondent Cordelia Lynch reports now on what's been branded Michigan's most polluted area.
This is the 48217 district. It became known as Michigan's most polluted postcode. Residents around this corner of southwest Detroit say their health has suffered because of hazardous air pollutants.
I was born prematurely. I weighed 3 pounds and literally was born with asthma.
I'm the only cancer survivor still alive on the street that I grew up on.
I am a recipient of asthma.
More than 24 pollutant-producing facilities owned by multiple companies are scattered across this area. Vicky Dobbins says she's been feeling the weight of industry in nearby River Rouge most of her life.
The people begin to ask the question, what's going on? What's in the smoke? Then they start telling us SO2, CO2. What's that mean? Those are the things, those are the poisons and the pollutants that are floating around in the air, that are killing your grass, because not only are you killing the trees, you're also killing people.
Tens of thousands of black people fled segregation in the South to live near here, drawn to the booming auto industry in Detroit. Theresa Landrum said it was a utopia, but not anymore.
African Americans have been put into or forced to live in areas that are polluted. So environmental racism has a lot to do with where we live and where these factories and these industries are located.
Marathon, the company which runs this huge oil refinery, has offered to buy up homes to create a buffer zone. It says it's reduced emissions by 80% over 20 years and now produces less than 3% in a 2-mile radius. Local activists, though, insist it all adds up. And Rhonda Anderson, another cancer survivor, wants radical change.
The demand would be to shut down all the fossil fuel places, all of them. They don't need to be operating. The first thing that's going to do is help those new babies, because right now our babies are doomed before they reach kindergarten.
This isn't about one firm or one place. There's toxic air, lead poisoning and water shutoffs across America. Big business and government are under more pressure than ever before, and they've got a long way to go. Cordelia Lynch, Sky News.
And Cordelia also spoke to renowned environmental campaigner Erin Brockovich about Michigan's most polluted zip code. And you can see that interview here on the Daily Climate Show tomorrow. Let's take a look now at some of the day's other climate news. And it might be impossible to keep global temperature rises under 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels if the COP26 summit that's due to be held in Glasgow fails. That's the conclusion from a group of MPs who say the climate summit needs to be focused on the targets for success well before it actually happens in November. Tom Tugendhat is the chair of the Foreign Affairs Committee who released the report.
Some of the things that we need to think about is whether or not, how we count the carbon output of an item, whether we count it tied to the UK as it was manufactured here, even though it was manufactured in somewhere where carbon emissions are more liberally interpreted.
The cost of financing renewable energy projects is 4 times less than investing in coal. A new study from the University of Oxford has found that the risk of lending for new fossil fuel initiatives has increased as the world moves to cleaner energy sources. The most sustainable Olympics was more than 18 years ago in 2002. The Salt Lake City Games scored highest in an analysis published today in Nature magazine and has declined ever since. Researchers measured how well each city performed in economic, social and ecological sustainability. The report recommends rotating between existing venues and host cities, as well as reducing the number of in-person spectators. One of the most common industrial fishing methods could be releasing millions of tonnes of carbon stored in the seabed. The Marine Conservation Society has warned that bottom trawling, where a weighted net is pulled along the sea floor to catch fish, can damage the UK's most vulnerable sea habitats. Polling commissioned by Greenpeace says that 2/3 of people now back a ban on bottom trawling in marine protected areas. And the world's most powerful tidal turbine is beginning its journey to be installed off the coast of Scotland. The orbital O2 turbine will have the capacity to generate electricity for 2,000 homes a year once it arrives at the European Marine Energy Centre in the waters of Orkney. Now, let's take you over to our data dashboard now and show you this number here. Now, this shows how much human activity has warmed our planet since the Industrial Revolution, and it's ticking up every single second. The aim, agreed by 196 parties in 2015 as part of the Paris Agreement, is to keep that under 2 degrees, preferably to 1.5 degrees of warming. And a crucial report from the United Nations has been released today, which found that in 2020, the global average temperature was about 1.2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. So the State of the Global Climate Report sets out how climate change indicators and impacts worsened around the world last year. And it found that 2020 was one of the 3 warmest years on record. That's despite a cooling La Niña event. Now, although lockdowns temporarily reduced greenhouse gas emissions, overall, atmospheric concentrations of gases such as carbon dioxide and methane continue to rise. More than 4/5 of seas experienced at least one marine heatwave last year. And there were record high temperatures in the Arctic Circle in Siberia, and Arctic sea ice shrank to its second lowest summer minimum on record. Well, let's bring in our climate change correspondent, Lisa Holland, now. And Lisa, not all of these findings are new. So what's the significance of this report being released now?
Well, Anna, I think the significance is in its timing, in that it comes just a couple of days before this crucial virtual summit, which is being hosted by the United States, when America will implore other countries to up their ambitions to reduce greenhouse gases. Now, this conference, which will come up towards the end of the week, is seen as really pivotal. And this report helps underline just how critical the situation is, not just with some of the data, which we already knew about, just how warm the planet has got, but with some of the really stark language which is being used by the World Meteorological Organization and the United Nations, talking about the relentlessness of climate change. It's a pretty stark message, and really clearly they are trying to tell the world that there is no time to waste.
Lisa, thank you. A coffee species has been rediscovered in the wild that could help future-proof the global coffee supply against the effects of climate change. The rare and little-known species from West Africa has a similar flavour profile to high-quality Arabica coffee, but with greater tolerance for higher temperatures and rainfall variability. Well, joining me now is the Head of Coffee Research at Royal Botanic Gardens, Kew, Dr. Aaron Davis. Dr. Davis, thanks so much for talking to us. And you've been studying this species of coffee, so talk us through what properties it has that makes it more resilient to climate change.
Yeah, as you said, it has two really key characteristics. First is that it's able to withstand very high temperatures compared to other coffee species, and particularly Arabica coffee. So it will grow in temperatures many degrees above Arabica and a few degrees above Robusta. So that's important in terms of climate resilience. But on the other side of things, it has an amazing taste. And if we look at all the other coffee species, of which there are 124, none have this unique combination.
So how vulnerable to climate change is coffee more generally? And what could this mean for some of those farmers in areas most affected by rising temperatures?
So the coffee sector is increasingly vulnerable to climate change, and it's seen as one of the major threats to the sector, particularly going across this century. And that will impact the 100 million or so coffee farmers worldwide. And the hope is that initially this will be used as a crop for some of those farmers, particularly in Africa. And the long-term aspiration is that it will be used to breed the next generation of coffee crops that will be, resilient at least to 2 or 3 degrees rise in temperature.
And this species has only recently been rediscovered, hasn't it? So how rare is it? And are there concerns about safeguarding it?
Yes, there are. It is a rare species. It's threatened with extinction in the wild due to deforestation. And we have to do our utmost to preserve not only this species, but other species that may have potential for securing the long-term sustainability of the sector.
And you said earlier that it tasted really good. Are you able to describe the taste at all?
Yeah, I am. It's absolutely fantastic. We had very low expectations based on our other experiences of wild coffee, but this has a natural sweetness. It has a great complexity in its flavour profile. It's everything you would expect in a great cup of coffee.
Very well done. It's not easy to explain a taste. Dr. Aaron Davis, thanks very much indeed. That's everything from us for today. On the Daily Climate Show tomorrow, our correspondent Cordelia Lynch speaks to environmental activist Erin Brockovich, whose successful lawsuit against the Pacific Gas and Electric Company was turned into a Hollywood hit starring Julia Roberts.
I am Erin Brockovich, and I am delighted to be here with you at Sky News today. And I have to give you a shout out because I am damn proud of you. Taking on the conversation of climate, of water, of this planet, of its future, putting it out there so people know, so people can learn.
That's at the same time tomorrow here on Sky News. See you then.